On today's episode of Nerds Forever, we talk about the impact of Black Panther, Mourning Chadwick Boseman, Wakanda Forever, and the X-Men? Don't forget, we're going to be quizzing our guests here, all in now on Nerds Forever. Welcome everybody back to Nerds Forever. So in today's episode, with the release of Wakanda Forever coming out very shortly, I wanted to talk about the significance and the cultural impact that was Black Panther in 2018. Because for me, that movie it meant so much to me. And I just know from a lot of people, it was so nice seeing us on screen. So I thought I would bring on another content creator that I know. So would you like to introduce yourself by your handle, what you do on the internet?
Sure, yeah. Hi guys, Ashley K Smalls, which is basically my handle on Twitter and TikTok and basically everywhere else. In terms of what I do, I mean, I guess we could say mostly skits. I started off doing like Marvel skits primarily, and it's sort of since expanded, especially with House of the Dragon.
Oh, I love
Airing.
those ones that you do.
But yeah, I mean, every now and then I do some commentary and stuff like that. But I would probably say my main bit would be doing skits around nerd content that I basically loved my entire life.
Nice, yeah. I basically I do the same stuff too, and I just like seeing more people do them. And like when I see like your videos get a lot of views, I'm like, yes, like I do, I'm like, yes, like share. So before we talk into like the details of like Black Panther and like it's in like what it did like box office wise and like how it became such a big cultural thing. Do you want to tell me about your like introduction or your relationship to Black Panther? Like, did you read the comics before? Did you know about him before?
Yeah. So I mean, my experience is kind of an extensive one. I mean, when I was
Oh.
younger, I was a very big X-Men fan, and I was very much Storm was my very first like big superhero.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't talk about her as much just because we don't have as much content yet, but like please when she comes out and y'all like, oh, you made a complete switch. No, I've always been here. I just don't get to really show her off. But of course, through Storm was then my introduction to more of the characters outside of X-Men. Came in really, I should say I liked Black Panther before the Avengers.
Nice.
And I guess my first introduction really was through the comics. I read more so of T'Challa's appearances in other comics, and
Okay,
then jumped
okay.
over. And I was really young, so like mind you, I also had to wait for my father to buy comics and then still his,
I
until I got old
love
enough to
that.
then buy my own. And then, but I will say, it was a huge shift when the movie came out.
Mm-hmm.
For one, they made some changes in the movies from the comics that I thought was really great, like in terms of Killmonger's connection to Wakanda, because now it became this conversation of like, African Americans and our connection
Right,
to Africa as well. We've
right.
honestly heard those conversations around the diaspora and things like that, and so it was a very interesting perspective of seeing this character who quite frankly went off the deep end. So T'Challa did what he had to do, but in terms like you always hear those. I hope they're joking. Killmonger was right, sort of
Right?
but on some level, like, those complex villains who are like, we understand, oh, you're not evil just because you woke up one day and said, wouldn't killing people just be fun? But like, it's really coming from this place of, I mean, both trauma as well as this sort of neglect. And when you think about like
Mm-hmm.
our connection to where we are currently in the US, and that
Right.
feeling of like it was definitely it was I think Ryan Coogler just did a really great job in terms of I'm not entirely sure if he was the only one to make that decision. He probably wasn't, but he did have obviously the main role in bringing that into the screen. Um,
Yeah.
and that kind of changed my relationship with T'Challa in that he was always in my top five. I mean, I'm gonna keep it real with you, like black superhero. I'm just gonna like it's sort of like whenever
Keep it real, yeah.
it's sort of a little bit like when people do the whole what's your favorite Marvel movie thing. I got plenty of qualms with Black Panther, but as far as when we're in general public, it is the best Marvel movie that they have ever made in history. They did nothing wrong. Everything was 100% great.
Don't kill me.
There was no fault, and I don't know what you're talking about. So,
Facts, like that's so like every time, what's your Marvel movie? Black Panther, it's not a question. It's Black Panther.
Like when we're with each other, sure. Oh, they kind of,
Yes.
yeah, sure. Yeah.
I didn't like that they did this, but when we're amongst others, it's
When I am outside, I don't know any. We're here for one thing and one thing only.
you
But
know it.
and then I mean, finally, also would probably have. I mean, across the board in terms of how they cast and anything. Like I love the fact that even Angela Bassett is Queen Ramonda because it's like, remember, she was originally supposed to be Storm. She was originally offered
Right.
the role and then she passed on it and went to Halle Berry. So her
Wow.
ending up being Queen of Wakanda in the end is still like, you see how God is always going to make sure
Yeah,
things that are meant to be are going to be.
right. You just wait. You just wait, and then you're gonna get your flowers.
And then, you know, Lupita Nyong'o, who is one of the few, don't believe, is she the first actress to win for that category? I mean, I'm not talking, well, anyway, Academy Award. She had just came off the brink a couple years later of winning the Academy Award, getting put into that role. And then Chadwick Boseman being casted was very big deal. Not just obviously because he is an amazing actor, but at that time, Chadwick's entire resume of acting is he brings characters to a whole new level of life.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you're a big deal when it's like the family members of historical figures like Thurgood Marshall are coming to you and asking you to portray characters in a biopic. And they're like, we don't care that you look nothing like him. Like, we would rather someone who's going to do him justice.
Yeah, and bring out the character.
That's what we want. And so when you think about it in that perspective, and it's like, who do you have to bring the first Black superhero lead? It's like, yeah, go to the one who has literally played real, like, Black people who we would consider superheroes in terms of, you know, who actually lived. I think like that was kind of genius when you think about how it's kind of connected link. So
that's gonna get me emotional. Just talking about him. I'm so sorry.
I'm like completely ready for the fact that first 20-30, I mean, I feel like they'll probably even dedicate maybe the first hour. I need people to realize that like Wakanda Forever is rumored to be like close to 3 hours.
Really?
That's what the rumor is. Now, if it ends up doing something else, so be it. But that is what the rumor is. It's supposed to be the second longest.
I'm here for it. I'm
thinking like, if that is true, like I can see even the first, at minimum 40 minutes is just going to be him, if not the first hour completely. Like that's not something where you just do a opening, oh, we miss him. Like that's not something,
no, it's gonna be really the theme of it.
Knowing Ryan Coogler immediately went to personally rework that entire script. That's not something where you just, we're gonna make sure we honor him. That's something where it's like, we need to make sure he has just as much of a presence in this movie as he would if he was still here. So I already know like that first opening, like I need people to understand that you would think we would be used to the fact that Marvel doesn't give us much in the trailers. And
right.
Because there's so much they're just not going to show us, given how emotional this movie is, and also the stakes about it. Like this is probably next to like the big crossover movies that are coming, I would say, in terms of a solo film. I mean, I'm very biased here, but I do think it's probably the most anticipated.
Yes. I mean, yeah, I'm biased too, but like I agree.
I mean, like I'm gonna wear that. I know I am. I know I'm very, very biased, but I'm like, I'm just thinking about what we have on the docket, and yeah, I'm excited for other stuff coming up, but not on this level. And it's an interesting level of excitement because I'm kind of scared excited too. It's like, yes, in the midst of things, we know he's gone, but like we get to still, it hasn't really happened in MCU yet. Whereas when we go in and we see that now official, and that really sucks.
It, like, you know what's so sad too, because when I heard the news that he passed away, my heart sank, because like what he did for me, like as a like an inner child, like as a Black kid, like going to the theater in 2018 and seeing the audience filled with Black people, and us just looking at a hero that we've always wanted on the big screen, like that was for my inner child to see him. Like I'll never forget in the Busan chase scene where he flips over and he transforms in his suit, and I was just like my heart leapt out of my throat, because it was just like seeing a Black superhero on the big screen like that. Like my inner child was just tears of joy. So when I heard that he passed away, I immediately went downstairs and tried to watch the film, but I just couldn't. It just still hurts me to this day. And what my friend said is like, we all dealt with his death separately, and we all grieved separately. So now watching Wakanda Forever is going to be like a place for us to all give a good farewell together.
Yeah.
And just hearing that put together, I was just like, yeah, this is going to just be a gut wrencher.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
oh,
Yeah.
and that's
I
why
feel
like
like
it's my most anticipated because I mean it's Black Panther, it's the end of Phase 4, but like it's a farewell to him, and it's just so sad.
yeah, I mean when at the time when he passed, my friend, my roommate and I both we were working the only two black graduate students in our department at Penn State. We were
Mm.
both working on projects that were related to Black Panther.
Oh,
So we were watching TV and got the alert on our phones.
oh.
I had to go to the bathroom. I was like, "Oh, this you don't
See?
want me out here." She was in the living room crying. I'm in my bathroom crying.
Oh,
I don't think I really even cried over a celebrity, but I mean, like I've
yes.
definitely mourned. Like I was very sad, when Prince passed and Michael and
Yeah.
like even
Oh,
Stan Lee. But like that one, I think also the big gut wrenching punch was that with some others, we either know that they're ill, we know that they're
yeah.
untreated.
Nobody knew.
This was just like there's no way. Like there was a little bit of stuff because
I
paparazzi not minding their damn business, but like
right.
it still was a matter of no one had like a clue, even his own, the people who were working with him, of how severe
Yeah.
that
Oh,
was. And it's completely understandable of why. But unfortunately, because we did it was just like this
it
random alert
was
that you get on your phone
yes.
of like,
I thought it was fake. I
I
was
was
like,
like,
no way.
I was still getting AP alerts because right before I was working, I came back to school. I was in news, so we had AP alerts in case something happened and we needed to like get on the ball
Oh,
of reporting it.
yeah.
So I was convinced. I was like, what the hell is AP News doing right now? There's no
Oh,
way. And as soon as I logged on to Twitter, and at that point, that
yes.
was when like my
I'll never
sort of
forget that day.
nerd community was sort of cultivating. And once I saw the tweets, I was like, it was crazy. It wasn't even like someone reporting like, oh my God, Chadwick passed away. It was just, no, oh my
Yes.
God, what the fuck is happening? Like those type of reactions.
Yeah.
And that's like no one even said his name.
No,
But we
I'll
all but
never
we
forget
all
that day.
collectively were just like
Yeah.
that's a whole sort of like that's a whole other experience. And that's also pretty much a testament to
To
his
him.
faith, because
Oh,
like anyone else, I feel like we would all be sitting there like, what's going on? Like it would be more so
right?
like, you need to like this was just like one unified like feeling.
Yes.
Like
Oh,
we all just got collectively slapped across the face.
yes. I everything you're saying, I felt like it just and that's crazy too, how we all felt that like from miles apart. And it's like the only other celebrity death that like I can remember impacted me a lot was Carrie Fisher with Leia
Mm.
Organa. Like I'm a big Star Wars fan. I grew up with that my whole life. And I was just like I knew that she was sick because we got that news. I was just praying, praying, praying. I was like, she can't go. Like that's our princess. And then when she left, I was just like gutted. But like this one really hit me hard because like I just related back to just my inner child. Like I was at work one day months after his passing, and I just had to leave the room. And they're like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No." Like I just kept crying. It just kept hitting me. It was just bad. I'll never forget that day.
Yeah, and I know it's I mean, there's just not going to be a dry eye in the theater. We just
No.
all need to be. we need to. You just have to accept that. Like as much as we've gotten these little clips of of like his funeral and his passing, and I
Yeah.
really don't even think I'm like if that's what Marvel was willing to even show us, then that means like that probably is not even the portion of what really is going to be.
Right? Oh
You
my
know,
gosh. I
um,
made like a joking TikTok about like let me get a large popcorn, a large Coke, and a large box of tissues, but I'm not playing. I'm bringing a box of
no,
tissues.
yeah, no, I am. There's just no like there's no way. There's just no
No.
way. Like I'm first of all, I'm a Pisces. I'm a very big crybaby. It doesn't take that much if I'm keeping it real with you. So for something that genuinely actually makes me sad, yeah, nah,
Love the self-awareness.
there's no way. And also I think we have to remember that this was filmed while the cast may be healed
Right.
now, and
Yeah.
even now, it's of course it's still a sore spot that this was taking place when things were very
Oh,
raw for them. And you get some of the greatest actresses of all time, uh, Angela Bassett, who is my favorite actress of all time, and this
right?
movie very clearly is going to be leaning on her heavily, as we saw in the
Oh,
trailer.
her line.
Um,
the only line in that trailer, it was just delivered with such vulnerability and strength in it. And I was just like that's all I needed to hear. I was
Yeah.
just like, oh, it just got me. I was like, what did she say again? Like, I am the queen of the most powerful nation on the planet, and my whole family is gone. Haven't I given enough? And I was just
Yes.
like,
And I'm like, even their music choice for that trailer, it's
right.
like there was a very, this movie is going to be really showing the women of Wakanda, not only the women of Wakanda, but like that T'Challa's his guards have
Our
always
woman.
they've been women.
Oh,
And it's like the song being No Woman, No Cry of,
yeah.
that you hear no cry, you think it's telling you not to cry. And really the song is supposed to be about how it is okay
Hate to cry.
to cry.
Yeah.
And so between the matriarch, his sister, uh, Denai's character, Okoye, who is his best friend, his lover, and then the many women who I think as women, Black women especially, we do sometimes
Yes.
feel like we've let people down. So can you imagine the Dora Milaje of whatever the
Yeah. They've
storyline that
they've
they
taken out
do
on the burnt
of we didn't
yeah.
protect him. How were we not able to protect him and things like that? And we've seen already that they're bringing in oh, she's the lover of Ao. She's played by
Oh,
basically
she's from Chewing Gum.
yes, yes. Oh
Yes.
my gosh. And
Oh, I just watched her.
Michaela Cole too.
Yes.
And
Yes.
basically that's going to be another she's Dora, but she's a fighter. Let's just because I don't know what changes that they're gonna make in the movie, and I don't want to sit here like I do. But my point being is that I can see them trying to, in true grieving fashion, when you are grieve, you want to punch things, and
Yeah.
and we can kind of see them trying to maybe even deal with their grief in, uh, we weren't able to protect him, but now we're going to do the most to protect Wakanda, and it's
Yeah.
like I need people to understand Namor is not a villain. I keep trying, and I
Yeah.
keep trying with my content. Nowhere in my content has ever referred to him as a villain. That's on purpose. I might say things like when you're defending Wakanda from someone, when you are, in a
Yeah.
but conflict, there's a very clear difference between antagonist and villain. Like Tony
Right.
Stark in Captain America Civil War is an antagonist.
Yes.
While
It
I know there's
all
some people
depends on the point of view.
exactly, it's an antagonist is not necessarily a villain. And in the comics, don't get me wrong, Namor has some tactics that we may not always agree with. He is to his core an anti-hero,
Yeah.
but his goal at the end of the day, no matter what, is he's protecting his people. He is never ever doing evil shit because I can. That's not who he is. So I say that in the midst of their grief and things like that, and now they're butting heads with someone. Will they be going into that with a clear mind? Could it be that they're like the Dora and Wakanda in general have always been people who could even talk things out. Don't get me wrong, we could sling some shit too, but it's like with everything going on, are they going to even want to talk? I know when I've been grieving people for my life, I don't want to hear shit. I'm very cold
Yeah.
right now. I'm not a mean person, but I'm going
Yeah.
through shit. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that's reflected, in everything that's going to go down, because this is not going to be your typical conflict. This is not going to be
No.
your standard. I think people need to let go of this idea of good guy, bad guy. I'm not saying there's not going to be a bad guy. I'm just saying that from what we have right now from this trailer, you really need to look at it from a perspective of,
Gray.
yeah, two people who do genuinely believe they're doing something to help others.
Yeah.
Whether it's
I've heard the
yeah,
quote before where like you're always like in your story, or in somebody else's story, you're always gonna be the villain. Like
yeah.
someone's gonna see you as the villain to their story. And I was just like, yeah, like there could be all these like misinterpretations or miscommunication. Like I don't know how they will show the beef, like how it started, but there's definitely gonna be you're on the wrong side, I'm on the good side. I've got to protect my people. And I'm really excited. I feel like they're gonna do that well with seeing the whole anti-hero aspect of Namor, because you
Mhm.
can't just introduce him um as a straight up villain and then potentially he's gonna have like his own like solo movie. Like you have to show redeeming qualities or good qualities of him that make the audience go, I want to see more of him, but from a more like a good side or like more depth to it. Like when we saw Thanos, I was like, I don't want to see more of you. You're doing bad stuff. Like you're making everybody's life suck. But like if you get to know somebody more, you're just like, oh, okay, like what makes you tick? And I feel like that's gonna be interesting, especially because he's rumored to be now the second mutant in the MCU right now because Kamala is the first one, and now he's gonna be the second one that we see. So that's gonna be interesting to see like more of him and like his whole life.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how they're kind of building up. Like, I mean, the rumor is that the X-Men movie will not be called X-Men, it'll be Mutants, and I think that's the best. That's a very smart way for them to go.
Yeah.
Because we're not really being introduced to X-Men so far, even though they did do the X-Men music during Miss Marvel.
Yeah.
But we're being introduced to people who have a mutated gene. We're being
Yeah.
introduced to mutants in that sense. And Namor in the comics is the very first mutant, I believe. Or at least he's definitely one of the first ones.
He's one of the first one, yeah.
Yeah, because I think Apocalypse might technically, we saw Namor first, but I think maybe Apocalypse technically came, but like was their version of born before him or whatever. But
yeah.
My point being that, you know, it's interesting to see them just bringing in these characters of who have the mutated gene without really saying like the word yet.
Yeah. We only get like the little
like just to let us know. But the great thing about that is they're just making it very clear that they are here.
Yes.
Because I feel like the main question on people's minds, like how are they going to just pop up with the X-Men one day? Because our main question is going to be, where the hell were you when we were going up against
Thanos?
You know, I think we could have used a guy who could control metal and a guy who could control minds. Where were y'all floating around?
Right.
So I feel like they're doing it in a strategic enough way that we'll get those answers before the official movie of really focusing on them comes out.
Yeah.
Because that being said, I remember when the movie was being filmed and people were like, oh, like people thought Michaela Cole was going to be playing Storm.
I would have loved that because
I would have loved it, but at the same time, I knew it couldn't be true because that would have been cheating.
Yeah.
Like,
but you know what? I wish she held out for it. I wish like her agent or her was like, no, I want to be Storm, because I feel like she would have killed that role.
She would absolutely do a great job. But like, well, for one, from what I've heard is that because of the contract issue, I don't think they can technically put anyone in Storm.
Okay.
So there's a rumor that Marvel has never, of course, confirmed. They probably never actually will confirm it, but there's a lot of evidence kind of proving it, in that until a certain year, they can't, the contracts of people who had those roles in the Fox movies are still intact. And the reason why I say that kind of makes sense is because when you think about it, outside of the new mutants we've gotten, such as Namor, the mutants we've seen have been the actors from the Fox movies. We got Evan Peters as Quicksilver. We got Patrick Stewart as Professor X. And we're getting Logan again. We're getting Hugh Jackman again as Logan. So I'm like,
wow,
that kind of would make sense because we've only gotten the Fox, but it thankfully has been the ones that we actually like and not like the ones who had no business being there. Like, it does kind of make sense,
right?
If that's the truth. But also it's just like, unless they were to bring in an inexperienced Storm, you're gonna have someone who can basically just lift the water up. What is a Atlantean supposed to do?
Right.
She's so, I mean, and the Fox movies just don't, like, they just basically dim her powers. They don't, like, she was making ice at a fucking party in one of the scenes.
Right, like, she's an Omega level mutant, like, and I feel like we deserve to see that.
She could cause an entire earthquake if she wanted to. Like, literally, the reason why everyone has to stop what they're doing, because her, like, main weakness is that she's claustrophobic, and everyone stops what they're doing to help her. And that's not just because, oh, that's our friend. It's because if she gets angry enough, she will have a tornado going over there. She'll have an earthquake going over here. We'll be dealing with a fucking, like, you know, she'll just start 20 natural disasters. Like,
I would love to see that.
We need to make sure she is happy at all times. Thankfully, she obviously has complete control of her powers. But I was just like, unless they brought in a very inexperienced Storm, I couldn't see that happening. Like, don't get me wrong, Namor's very tough. I'm not saying he would just easily get his ass whipped, but I am just saying that to have a woman who can just cause a tidal wave come in against, that's not fair. I would have felt bad for them.
I wanted to just talk about the big box office success that was Black Panther, and what does it mean to people who are outside of, you know, the Black community, the Black experience, because It was the 18th film in the MCU, but it was the highest grossing movie of that year. It made over 1.3 billion dollars worldwide, and it's the only and first. I think it's the first. Yeah, it's the first superhero movie to receive a Best Picture nomination. So you see what happens when, I guess, representation gets pushed at the forefront, or like, why did it take it so long? And look what happens when, you know, we get representation, because like, to have the highest grossing film of the year be a black dominated cast and black superhero, and it made Ryan Coogler the highest grossing black filmmaker of that year.
Mhm.
And it's just like, it made me so proud, because I'm just like, this is what happens when you put us in shit. Like, it made so many noise. It made so much noise. It made so many box office records. It just was like the only thing that people could talk about for weeks. Like, I remember when Infinity War came out that same year, Black Panther was still in theaters, and that came out like early February, and Avengers Infinity War came out like
I think
in
April.
May. Right? Yeah. So it's had such a longevity because it was doing so well. Like, how, does that make you feel proud? Like, what was your feelings going into the theater? Because I know me, like, I went decked out and I was like, yep, this is
Yeah,
my
that was definitely, I feel like it probably did a lot for their merch too, because it was one of those movies of actually wanting to, I mean, I have my Marvel stuff, as you follow me, I basically wear
yeah.
it in the video, but like that was definitely one of the, like, you wanted to show specifically you were a Black Panther fan
Mm-hmm.
and not just a Marvel fan. And I think also I know plenty of people really don't watch Marvel movies, but they were like, I'm gonna go watch this one. And
Yeah.
it's great that it's so standalone. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's like, we first see T'Challa in Civil War. We know that his father has passed away and things like that. But we also, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure all that out if this was your first movie watching. And I
Right.
say that, and that it made it really important because for my friends who were like, I am not going with you to see Infinity War. I don't know any of these people, but I do know I will go to see this movie and they will still watch it. That's probably only
Yeah.
Marvel film they ever bought from like Amazon on Blu-ray or anything, because it's like, I don't need to know anything else going on in this world with these people. All I need to know is this right here. And I think it just really showed, like, the fact that his story was very much centered on him and
Mm-hmm.
his people.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just like, yeah, of course it was for the Marvel fans, but it was very clearly a story of, of what it's like being to, just because I'm like trying to make sure I frame it in a way. This also kind of brings me back to my point about how strategic, I don't want to say strategic, how smart it was to do what they did with Killmonger's story
Yes,
too,
I was about to say that
because
too.
they gave African Americans a stake in this as well, outside of the
Yeah.
fantasy of this fictional nation. But in this, the fact that this nation exists in what would we call the homeland and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But like, some of us, we feel connected. Some of us are lucky enough to still have people who are there who we can talk to and things like
Yeah.
that. But for many of us, we don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so that story and Killmonger's feelings, even though again he was wilding out, T'Challa was right to do what he did. Like, there's no reason with him. You do what you got to do. But that story of Killmonger when he is, a kid, and even going back to Killmonger's father, it's like,
Yeah.
what does it say? You grow up in the richest nation in the world, and
Yeah.
like a couple years in America will turn you literally into like,
Yeah.
you just like the fact that he was like, oh, this is sick. They this is crazy. Like, they out here,
Yeah.
this is madness. And so, but I say that to say that whether you were someone who would also identify as African, whether you're someone who is African American,
Yeah.
the stakes to this story about origin, the stakes
Yeah.
in the story in terms of identity, T'Challa figuring out who he is, Killmonger feeling like this is only who he can be, due
Yeah.
to sort of feeling like he was disowned, because in a way he was. They just basically said, we're just going to leave him here. Um, all these different stories in terms of when you take like the battle and stuff like that out of it and how it would just affect someone in terms of culture, I think is like why people kept going back to it and why we still go
Yeah.
back to it, and why I think the year after that they put it back in theaters for Black History Month. And I know that there
Oh,
are people who
nice.
still do like Black Panther, screenings during Black History Month, because
Yeah.
it really does include basically like all of us, even if
Yes.
you're Caribbean American, like, this idea of having to follow like your roots and sometimes feeling
Yeah.
like you are cut off from your roots because of the many things that have happened to us in terms of oppression. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing I've always loved about the stories of Wakanda, even when it came down to the comics. And I know that it was written by non-Black people, but it's like, God damn, how did y'all come up with this idea of, I mean, to be honest with you, it's not surprising, because when you think about when Black Panther was written and the civil rights, things that were happening at that time, this idea of, what if the bullshit that led to this had never happened and how people would prosper. I mean, yeah, I could see
Yeah.
how that would become a concept. But, I think it says something that in 2018, decades later, that is still a feeling that is so prevalent for us
Yeah.
that
And like
we're relating to it.
yeah, like what I loved about going into it and like seeing people like dressed in like all their African garments, it was very much like, let's celebrate us as a people and us as a culture, and like going back to our roots, but also like this is what could have been, right? Like we could have had all of this because like, and I love how they included like heavily their natural resource was so prominent and was so precious, because Africa's been stripped of their natural resources,
Mm-hmm.
but the people who live there don't get to benefit from that. So now we have people who are going to safeguard that. So there's just so many themes that just make it so relevant, and what keeps people going for rewatches. And like with Killmonger, him being the villain, but us looking at it from like an African American perspective, who we've had our ties to Africa cut off, you relate to him in that way too, so you get to see his side of the story. Like when T'Challa kind of dies in the film, but he doesn't really. I just love the direction of how the screen, like when Killmonger is walking on the throne, flips over, and it's like a change of perspective, and like you're watching it from Killmonger's perspective now, and it just takes the audience through both of their stories, and the album does that well too. But just the thought of that was put into seeing both perspectives, it just, like, to me, it's just phenomenal. Like you can connect to both sides of it. Like here's us untouched, as kings and queens, and then here is the actual reality, and how can we get back to that, or should we get back to that, or should we fight to get back to that? Because I know Killmonger was like adamant on like, we have all these resources, we have all these powers, we are the best nation on this planet, let's take back what's ours and our people. And how Africa and us, we shouldn't be considered like African Americans and Africans, it should be just Black people as whole, and how we need to work together, because there's so much divide in that, and just history had just ruined that. But this was a way to acknowledge that, learn from that, kind of heal from that, and also celebrate, because Black people as a whole were just really resilient people. So just to see both sides of that resilience is just, like, to me, I love it. I loved it.
Yeah, no, I mean, and even now, I think like I'm really excited for Wakanda Forever. We're still going to get this African American perspective, but instead of through the antagonist, it will be
Mm-hmm.
Detective Williams. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm really, I mean, I don't know completely what changes that they're going to make to her character from the comics, but like it looks like instead of having a very close link to Tony Stark, it'll be more so through Wakanda, and I can see them
I
really
love that.
heading for armor wars with Rhodey, which I think is
Yes.
better direction to go in since Tony is no longer with us. And so I'm really happy that they still managed to figure out a way to, in that same regard of showing because the Black experience is not a one-dimensional,
No.
experience. So it's someone such as myself, who is the descendant of people who were brought here, is
Mm-hmm.
going to have a very vastly different experience than
Right.
someone whose parents actually might, immigrated here.
Yes.
Um, but at the end of the day, this country is going to refer to us as the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah.
Uh, so,
Right.
but that perspective, though, in terms of Riri coming into this place of that's very different from where she grew up, with resources that she otherwise did not have. But more
Yeah.
importantly, I think it's really important that she's going to be surrounded by Shuri and even Queen Ramonda, versus being put into this very currently hostile MCU climate with everything going on and people kind of beefing right now because you know you got Wanda over here beefing with Doctor Strange, what's going on, you know. You got Hawkeye over here. We don't know what he's running from this week. It's just like I've got a lot of stuff going on. So I think it's probably best.
We need our girl to be surrounded by love.
But yeah, no, I'm happy that that perspective is still coming in because it does allow them to show the Black experience from more than just one angle of those who were fortunate enough to grow up in this nation where people actually care about each other. Because that is one of the things we don't talk about about, you know, Wakanda as well, is that when you separate the royal family that uses powers and is protecting the country, if you're just an innocent person in Wakanda who's just like, this is where I live, like you actually have the luxury of just having everything you need. Like it's like, you know, it's like, wow, like, you know, this place we're here where you have to justify being able to afford a living. And it's like Wakanda, you just kind of
just live.
Like, you know, they just gave a whole hut to Bucky one day. So it's like basically it's people gets to just whatever you need.
Right.
And I'm hoping we get to see a bit of reflection. So I'm not going to say what Namor does in the comics, but they do show in the trailer that he does it too. And I say that because the perspective of how this could all affect people in Wakanda who may not be fighters. Maybe they're just, you know, they're part of a tribe who are just, I think we'll also see to an extent how they're affected as well. Like just these different perspectives of what it means to, I don't even want to just make it exclusive to Wakanda. I do think these different perspectives of what it means to just really be Black in different places. And when you are cut off from wealth, when you at least are in a place that cares about your well-being, when people, I get the feeling Shuri and Okoye are going to be the ones to find Riri. I think because like you don't just stumble in Wakanda, so like you have to
you have to be given the invitation.
Exactly. So I feel like that's how it's going to work. So like and we know based off of where Black Panther the first one left off, that was literally the whole point, was the outreach program of we have all these resources, let's help our people who aren't here. So I feel like that's what that storyline is going to get into, and I bring it up because I am hoping it comes to an inside looking moment for the actual community of how you can maybe help if you do have the resources, if you are fortunate enough to have resources. Like it doesn't have to always be money, it could be just you know, insight,
networking.
Exactly, that how do you make that happen with someone who's trying to get to where you are, or help them get to wherever it is that they want to be. So I think there's like, outside of the battle and outside of the conflict, I think there's a conversation around that from what I picked up around Riri, I think is going to be happening as well.
And like what I love about that too is like, because, and that's why I'm so happy that you're on the podcast, and that's why I love seeing you do well on TikTok, because all the time with social media entertainment, it's always like a generic person. So if I get success, I want to bring you in there. If you get success, you want to bring someone else in there too. Like when I get a door open for me, you best believe I'm opening a window for one of my own people, because you know the struggle, and to have other people get there easier, quicker, cheating, and for us to struggle just to get a half of that, it hurts. So like that's why I love the message in the movie, and hopefully what we're going to see more of, and I don't want to spoil it, but like when you have such a powerful nation of Black people, like Black people, wealthy Black people, like we don't have generational wealth. So now that we're seeing a whole nation like that, obviously let's help our other people from other parts of the planet who did not have the luxury to have opportunities like that. And how can we uplift our own people? Because no matter where we are on this world, we are our people. That's like I just love that message. I love that not only Black people get to see that, but other people get to see that too, because we're always viewed as like if you're the only Black person in the room, you're the representation, you're the template for other Black people, for other people, right? Like if you act a certain way, they're just going to assume other Black people act that way too. And it's just like, no. We're multifaceted, diverse people.
You know, I'm curious. This is why I was just keep going back to like the fact that like I know that trailer is giving us like I feel like everything in that trailer is probably from, if we're lucky, the first like hour.
Yeah.
And like I really don't think we're purposely not being given the full, you know, something is
Story.
purposely being hidden from us. And that's the way it
Yeah.
should be. Cause like I don't like I'm gonna probably go Ghost at the end of the month because I think the premiere is like at the end of October. And I'm like,
Lord.
it's gonna be we're gonna literally be we're gonna be dodging like we're going
Dodging
like I'm because
bullets.
I'm like if some I will haunt you in your dreams and in your nightmares if like you if you if you ruin this movie. This is the one movie I want to go in. I don't want to know nothing outside of the
Right?
trailer. I don't want to see nothing. I don't want to hear nothing about it. I don't even want a rumor that could be true.
No, I don't want I for me, a spoiler is if you liked it or not. I just want to just have my own perspective of it. Like when people are like, oh, I saw the movie, I'm like, shut up, let me leave the room. Okay, we'll talk in a week.
But I think it's going to be because I'm like, there's so much like Ryan Coogler really has to basically do like triple duty here. There's
Oh,
a homage
right.
to Chadwick that has to go in. There's the continuation of the original story of its own, and then
Mm-hmm.
he also to some extent has to still continue the story that's happening in the MCU.
Yes.
And so it's like that's the reason why I'm like pretty sure the rumor about it being so long is true
It
because
has to be. It
that's a
has to
pretty,
be.
this isn't like Love and Thunder where it's like Thor is just kind of continuing his story for the hell of it. Like this is before Chadwick passed, it was very clear that I think Kevin Feige and Marvel just intended on using him as like the new kind of center of the story to push it forward.
Yeah, the
Um,
glue.
yeah, exactly. And so it's possible Wakanda will still be that glue.
Yeah.
But whatever the case may be, this is also the end of phase four.
Yes.
So it's like you're wrapping up this story. So we know they have to open up whatever is about to happen in phase five. To some extent, we kind of already know because
Yeah.
Kang and things like that. But like that's kind of just one part of it. That can't be it. Because then how does a group like Fantastic Four come into play? And
Right?
we know that that movie is coming too.
You gotta plant the seeds, you gotta pay homage. It's a
And
big
it's like we
task.
know the movie is happening. There's
Yeah.
rumors about who's getting casted every freaking month. But it's like in terms of the MCU, nothing has solidified that there was this thing that happened in space one day that would have given somebody like what's going on here. You can't just I mean Marvel smart. They know like we can't just randomly have people who had
Yeah.
powers to fight Thanos. Like there has to be a reason why they wouldn't have been there. There
Yep,
has to
yep,
be a
yep.
reason or a way in which we can explain these things. So, I say that to say that what we're seeing in this trailer, I really think that that's gonna be the climax of like, if we're lucky, the first half of the movie.
I hope so.
I really don't see this being like the first Black Panther where it's like we meet these characters. Oh, this is really cool. Oh, he's gonna cause problems. Big fight, final fight. T'Challa wins.
Yeah.
I don't see it being in that
It's
kind of
gonna be
format.
definitely relying on emotional beats.
And this is why I'm trying to with I've been seeing some conflict, like some kind of troubling comments around, oh, they brought in this Latino actor, even though Namor is playing an indigenous character, but you still, and I've seen the comments about, oh, they bring in, they brought in this character of color, but they made him a villain. And I'm
Mm,
like, they keep trying to tell you he's not a villain. And I think when
yeah.
you look at this trailer from the perspective of him being an anti-hero, it opens up the fact that like this trailer really is not showing you what this
What it
movie is
needs to.
about.
Yes, yes.
Because if he's an anti-hero and there has to be some big conflict that would it not make sense that there may be something else happening here that would make Namor have to show what makes him an anti-hero at the end of the day? They can't have him just
Yeah.
destroying shit and then say, yeah, like I promise you that's not what they're about to do,
Yeah.
especially when they're going to want to continue his story, given the fact that he's basically, even though I know Kamala is like the first mutant we've been introduced to, she doesn't know that she really is a mutant yet.
No, right?
Like, Namor is hundreds of years old. Like he's coming into this
Yeah.
completely different. They're not about to just like this is not a character you just
Stumble
use for
upon.
one movie. It's just not going to be. So they
Right.
need you to like him on some level before this movie wraps up for what he's gonna have to do later on in the MCU. So if the
Yeah.
trailer is only showing you one perspective of him that makes it look like conflict, imagine what he's gonna, So I guess I'm trying to hint to the fact that I think that there's a third player involved that we don't know yet,
Ooh,
and I'm
that would
hoping
be exciting.
I do. I feel like it's the only thing that kind of makes sense to me now. I don't know if it's going to be the person I'm thinking of,
Oh,
but I do think like there's a third. I do think there's another character. I think there's
oh.
like a real main villain who's not.
We'll have to talk about that later. But for now, I know you said that you're not too good at trivia, but I think the questions will be sort of easy. I think they're easy. So right now it is time for what I call Nerdy Feud.
Uh,
So I have 5 questions and we're gonna test your knowledge on Black Panther. All right. First question. What kingdom does the Black Panther rule? A. Sokovia, B. Geonosia, C. Wakanda, or D. Sakaar?
I mean, gosh.
Oh, I don't know.
Well,
Your black card could be revoked if you don't know this.
I'm Wakanda.
Duh.
The place that I would be hopping on the first flight to if the option opened up.
First class, let's go.
First class, like I'd store myself in the fucking luggage bin if I had to. Like I'm out of here.
Okay, next question. What is the name of Wakanda's natural resource? A. Vibranium. B. Dilithium. C. Adamantium. Or D. Mithril.
It is vibranium, but I'm happy that you had adamantium as an answer.
Nice.
I'm really happy about that. That's going to be an interesting. I'm really excited for Deadpool versus. I should say I don't know if it's going to be a versus movie. I'm really happy for the Deadpool 3 coming out with Wolverine in it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be versus, even though I think that would be.
I think Deadpool is gonna want to try to be his friend, but then Logan's just gonna be like, ugh.
Yeah.
All right, next question. What herb grants the Black Panther his powers? A cat-shaped herb, B, a moon-shaped herb, C, a spear-shaped herb, or D, a heart-shaped herb?
Heart-shaped herb, which Killmonger completely burned. He said burn it.
He said, But then, like, yeah, there's a lot to talk about theory-wise on like how and who's gonna be the next Black Panther, but I guess we'll save that for later.
Yes.
Next question. What kind of energy does T'Challa's suit in the movie store? A. Thermal energy. B. Kinetic energy. C. Solar energy. Or D. Nuclear energy?
I want to say kinetic.
Yeah, it's kinetic. Okay. The other ones are definitely just like, I was like,
I was like, all right. That was the one that came to my head, but I'm also, because I'm in a doctoral program, I was like, now is kinetic something I read in a fucking book, or is that some shit that I actually got from the movie? I'm like, that started sounding like academic terms. I was like, hold up, is this something Sherry taught me or somebody else?
Right, your nerd brain and your actual like scientific brain is like,
right. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's not real.
Okay, last question. Who challenges T'Challa at his coronation? A. Wakabi, B. M'Baku, C. Killmonger, or D. N'Jobu?
Technically M'Baku. So yeah, I mean the answer is M'Baku, but I was thinking, but Killmonger does obviously challenge him later on.
Yeah, it was kind of like a trick.
He kind of walked in and demanded things and was like, "I will fight you though if that's what the process is." I don't really know if we can say it was a challenge, but it was M'Baku who did decide to come in. That'll be another interesting story in Wakanda Forever. I'm interested to see. I mean, I know he technically came to their side in the first movie, but that doesn't, like his tribe has like their own separate customs and things like that from the rest of Wakanda. So
I think definitely like with the events of Infinity War, like he's definitely like on his side.
Yeah.
But like it's just gonna be interesting to see how each character grieves and deals with the loss of their leader, because he was the glue of everything. Yeah, that's sad. But thank you. Well, obviously you won, because I mean, how many times do you know how many times you've watched Black Panther? Exactly.
I will say this. It's been, after Chadwick passed, I didn't watch it for like a year.
Yeah, I still have not watched it.
I couldn't do it.
No.
I had to go back to it for I think school, but I couldn't.
Oh.
Yeah. And then you want to know what's even sadder than Black Panther though is his final movie with Viola Davis on Netflix.
Yeah, I've not watched that.
I'm gonna tell you right now, you're gonna be in a puddle of.
No, I'm not gonna do that. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was a pleasure having you. I just love talking with not only nerds, but like people who are definitely like passionate about the topic, and like this is a big deal for us.
Yeah.
So before we wrap out, just quickly let everybody know where they can find you.
Oh yeah, sure. Ashley K Smalls, every basically platform. It should be every platform at this point. I've tried to unify it.
Nice.
I'm mostly active on Twitter and TikTok. Yeah, if you want to get in touch. I'll also run a Marvel community on Twitter as well. It's called Marvel Fans Assemble. So if you like want a bunch of people to talk about Black Panther, or maybe like a couple days after the movie airs with, you can also join that on Twitter as well. Just look us up.
Nice, thank you. Well, there you have it, guys. I cannot wait for Wakanda Forever, but also like I don't want to cry.
I just have accepted that I will, and
Oh,
you know
I'm
that's
so
just that's
denial.
fine. I'm gonna be no. If I wish somebody would judge me. Like no, we're different. I'm gonna judge you for not crying. What's wrong with you?
Oh,
You're
well,
so
yeah,
dark.
right. If I don't see the person next to me crying, I'll be like, what's
You're a
wrong with you?
psychopath. Get away from me.
Oh, well, thank you so much. All right. I'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.